Hey, Trell and Samantha, the White House is reaffirming this morning that the ceasefire deal is still in place, despite Israel claiming overnight that Hamas was trying to, quote, renege on parts of the agreement. We spoke with a University of Chicago professor who says it's important to remember a ceasefire is not a peace agreement. This morning, there are hopes about the prospect of peace in Gaza between Israel and Hamas after a ceasefire was supposedly reached by both sides. Hamas says it's committed to the ceasefire after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the militant group was trying to walk back on some of what was agreed upon by the warring groups. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby spoke about the deal with Good Morning America this morning.
There are some implementing details that still need to be ironed out. We're working with the Israelis on that very, very hard right now.
A senior administration official tells ABC News 2 living Americans are expected to be among 33 hostages released as part of the 42-day initial phase of the ceasefire deal in exchange for hundreds of Palestinians freed from Israeli prisons. Israeli forces will also withdraw troops to a buffer zone around Gaza, halting fighting and allowing humanitarian aid to get into the conflict zone.
All we can really say is time will tell about whether this ceasefire holds and whether it sets the ground for a truly comprehensive peace agreement.
University of Chicago Associate Professor of Political Science Paul Post says there's cautious optimism about possible peace in the region, but nothing is set in stone this early on.
There is always the concern that even though this is something that should be celebrated as a ceasefire, this is something a lot of people wanted, a lot of people were hoping for, it's important to keep it in perspective and realize that it could be short-lived.
And the bombing and killing continues in Gaza despite the calls for peace. Since the ceasefire was announced, more than 70 Palestinians have been killed in strikes across Gaza. Now, the ceasefire could be delayed if it's not approved by the Israeli cabinet today.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC 7 Chicago Eyewitness News.